Hi guys, we're going to take some notes over 7A Part 2. We've practiced finding mean, median, and mode. We've practiced finding range and outliers and just identifying what those are. And so for these notes, you're going to go ahead and take the sheet that you have and fold them in half, what I'd call hot dog style. And then you're going to cut straight up all the way to the edge there, so that when we open it, we're looking at some words in there. And this is all about when we would use each one of these. When would we use the mean? When would we use the median? When would we use the mode? So let's first of all look at our mean. If we open that up, here's an example of a type of data spread that we would use if we were going to look at the mean average. And the mean is when the data doesn't have numbers that are too low or too high. In other words, there aren't outliers there. So when the data that you're looking at doesn't have numbers that are too low or too high. When you have outliers and you're using mean, the outliers can really throw your data off. Think about it, if you've got all A's, and then you get a 0 on something, that outlier can really bring your score down. So that's why mean is not a good measure when you've got some outliers. So as long as your data is grouped around kind of all around the same numbers, then the mean is a good measure to use. All right, so when do we use the median? We use the median when the data has many values that are falling in the middle. So a lot of the values are in the middle. Again, this is the median. And of course, median is the number that falls in the middle of your data set. Then when the data sets have a couple of values higher or lower than most, in other words, there's some that are kind of outliers, like you can see the 1 here and the 29 here are, this is quite a bit higher than the ones in the center, and this is quite a bit lower than the ones in the center. So when you have some outliers, then your median would be a better measure of the middle to use. So when the data set, of course, this is the data set here. So these two values, this one is much lower and this one's much higher than most of the other values there. When you have a situation like that, then you want to go then with your median instead of your mean. All right, then when would we use our mode? Okay. So for mode, here's a numerical example that you might use, and here is a question that you might use for mode. So mode are survey. You want to use the mode when you're doing a survey that asks for the most or the favorite. So what's your favorite sports team? Okay, something like that. For data that has a lot of the same numbers, a lot of repeated numbers, so you can see over here we've got a lot of 5s in this data, so then our mode would be a better measure of the middle for us. If you're taking a survey that has yes or no answers, and when you really don't have any numerical data, so when it's you're not looking at test scores, you're looking at favorite colors or favorite sports teams or You just don't have a lot of numbers involved in your data. So those would all be examples of mode. All right, so next what you're going to do is practice. Make sure you use your notes, and you'll have a sheet to practice deciding whether you would use either the mean, the median, or the mode, looking at some situations.